here.
Oh, yes. And where are you? Where are you based?
So I'm based in India. I'm based in the host city, which is Bangalore.
Aha.
Yes, so the Bangalore, yeah, so we are hosting it, and that's where I'm based. It's the south of India.
Yes, yes. I've been to Mumbai and Delhi, but I haven't been to the west or central India. No.
Okay, so I'm in the south, and yes, Mumbai is about almost about an hour and a half from here when we go up.
Ah,
Yeah.
I see. Yeah. I have a very dear friend who's the director of nurses for a major hospital in Mumbai, and she's going through great stress at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, Mumbai is really having a hard time to do this in India especially, and I think we are catching up. My city is also really increasing in its cases, so we are all staying home. It's been a hard time for India.
Yes.
Let me just check if we have time to start. Give me a minute. I think
Okay.
we're early, so I'm just going to check with. So it's morning for you.
7:25 in the morning.
Okay,
I've been up since 2:30 watching it, listening.
Oh,
I went to bed early.
oh, I love that. I love that. We've been glued to the television as well, and just watching all the beautiful sessions, very inspired. So I want to actually welcome you also. I'm just checking if we're ready to go live. I think we're early, but let me just confirm.
Also, I'd like to know, I brought a PowerPoint that describes the development of my NGO, and I can do that, or I can just speak spontaneously.
Yeah.
We only have a half an hour, correct, or 20 minutes? And
Yeah.
the other lady is coming from Colombia.
Sure. I'm going to just share with you that we don't have any sharing of screen rights
Oh, I
in this
see.
conference. Okay. So it would be just you speaking, and
Okay.
we have about 12 minutes. And
Okay.
So if we have any questions, we could take one question from the audience. And so 12 minutes, and then we'll just wrap it up in another minute or two.
Okay.
And then we hand it over to the second speaker. Would that be okay for you, Deva Mary?
Sure. Sure, I can talk in any way we need.
Okay, so I know we love to show what what we're doing, and I'm just looking at your profile, and I'm looking at the 3 decades of experience you bring to this
Yes.
this conversation, and it's been incredible. The leading NGO efforts across to connect across the world to achieve global goals related to healthcare. I mean, I would love to hear more about what you do. And I think what I realized when I'm looking at your profile is that we both have travel in our blood. So I love traveling as well. So I see that's something that you've done a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
And also, as I was reading about you authoring, been an author of so many books and articles. So I do want to spend some time after this conference to read up what you've been doing. Yes, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. It comes to me that I think I'll do is I can watch the clock. I'm going to tell my story of how I evolved my own consciousness to become a global NGO. And I think
that's fantastic. I think that would be very inspiring for our audience across the world. So I'm just checking with the host if I'm ready to start this. So give me just 30 seconds.
I'm easy.
So it says that we're live and it's recording. So let me just check. So I'm just waiting for a response if we can get started. I also was very inspired by your Toastmasters story.
Yes.
And
Do you
to
know
use,
Toastmasters?
yes, of course. And just to look at how you're using that, the fact that you're the district Toastmaster now and how
Mhm.
you want to use it innovatively to educate and encourage nurses to get their voice and to tell the stories. That's really inspiring. I hope you'll weave that into your conversation today.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it'll be
Maybe remind me, well, and we'll see.
sure.
Yes,
So I'm happy to welcome you and give you the stage to get started and share with everyone across the world what is it that you are doing in the NGO space.
thank you so much. Thank you for moderating so beautifully, and it's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you, to all whoever you are across the world. The NGO space for me was very interesting. I began in the 1970s. I became a nurse, and in the 80s, I was working on developing holistic perspectives to nursing and to hospitals. I was living in California, and in the late 80s and early 90s, I began to realize that you could make nursing and hospitals, medical centers, and clinics as holistic as possible. But if you weren't addressing the global issues that are causing people to be sick and injured and to be stressed, that you could make hospitals as great as they could be, you're still not solving the problem. And I saw with perhaps some people are old enough to remember that in 1992 there was a summit, an Earth Summit called the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, the Rio Summit in '92. And that summit was focused on the environment. And what I saw with that, even in the prep for it, I saw that the that it was the NGOs, global civil society, that was actually driving the conversation. That that government officials, bureaucrats, ambassadors, government leaders all went there because they were required to do so. They had their national commitments to the UN or whatever. But they were there because they were told to be there. The NGOs were there because they were caring about the cause. And I noticed that even that in the months before and certainly in the months after, it was the global dialogue that emerged from that conscience, that the NGOs, global civil society, was driving the conscience of the uh, of the world, particularly with regard to the environment. And I thought, well, that's the powerful place to be. You don't have to be a bureaucrat. You don't have to be a government official. You can just be one individual caring about the cause that you care about. And so I wanted to go, so I moved from Southern California, first to Washington, D.C., national capital of the United States, and then to Ottawa, the national capital of Canada, to start to discover, to be with people who knew this and to learn how to be in global civil society. So the first point that I would make is that it really is if you are committed to a cause, and it's really from your own, let's say, soul's perspective, for your reason to be, your reason to be born. If you're doing that, and you contribute to the global dialogue, it's just thinking about the scope of what you're doing rather than how effective you are or you aren't. You can get so caught up in the ocean of troubles of the world, and you see yourself only as a little cell of water in that vast ocean of troubles, and you lose track of what you can do as just one little water cell, a drop of water in a vast ocean. But if you're staying clear with what it is that you're doing with your soul's purpose, then it's amazing how things emerge for you. So within half of a decade, I was already, I don't have to say why or how, I was already preparing for being a speaker at an NGO forum at the United Nations Summit in Istanbul that was focused on the habitat. And all those years that I was in preparation for that, I was working as a nurse, but I thought I was walking away from nursing because when I talked about this, and nurses, their eyes glazed over, and they didn't get it because, of course, they're focusing on looking after people on a bedside behind a curtain, right? And they weren't thinking about the big global picture. So I thought I was walking away from nursing, but when I went to prepare for the summit in Istanbul, I learned again about Florence Nightingale, who began her work, which she was a phenomenal one-woman NGO in her time. She began her work in Istanbul, then Constantinople. And so it was an opportunity that emerged for me to actually be with a group of nurses speaking at the barracks where Nightingale began her work in Istanbul, and to talk about how when she was working on seemingly impossible tasks, how she shifted in her lifetime many things that we take for granted today, just because of her commitment to her times. I said it, she saw 19th century problems and created 20th century solutions. And I said at that conference that we see 20th century problems and we are creating 21st century solutions. So it's a shift in consciousness about who we are and what we can be, and a widening of our sense of scope. Again, we see our scope, maybe we see our scope as a community, or we see our scope as in a city, or we see our scope in a hospital or at a bedside or wherever we are working. The scope can go global, and I saw that even before there was an internet. Now we assume the global, but then we still feel our smallness. And so there's this sense that being clear that we can bring our commitment to the global dialogue, and knowing that, and then build your sense of NGO, global civil society, into that knowing.
Thank
Perhaps
you.
maybe we could have a dialogue about that now.
Yes. In fact, I was just listening to you, and you painted this picture of, you made me see this vast ocean, and it's so easy for me to look at myself as this one person, and I could have two perspectives. One, I can't make a difference, and I'm just one cell, so what could I do? Or I could be someone who says that, if I am true to what I'm doing, I'm committed to a cause, and I feel it in my soul and in my gut, then I could find to make that difference, either at a bedside or with a community, and really start shifting the consciousness. And so I'm able to see that. And I think this is so powerful what you're saying, because it is actually shifting a conversation and having these kind of conversations that make a difference. And what really, really stuck with me is the 20th century, thinking about the 20th century problems and finding that, the next century solutions. Okay, 19th century. I like that, because that really helps you to really expand your consciousness and your perspective to what's happening. So that's the first thing that has really stuck with me, being committed to a cause. And and one person can propel that. One person can.
That's right. And it's around, I guess there's also that sense of intention. If you have an intention to focus at the global level, it may seem larger and you have pressures on that, but you can leverage that. Maybe you focus globally. Maybe you think, okay, I need to reach all continents. Well, maybe you make a friend in Africa, and you make a friend in South America, and you make a friend in Europe, and you make a friend in Asia, and you make a friend in Australia, and you're working with 6 people, and you are making a global difference, because each of those people has their networks.
Absolutely.
And then you can start to say, well, you've had your NGO has a global outreach. And you hear their perspectives, and you bring their perspectives to the dialogue that you bring to your NGO, and you start to make a difference. And just to say briefly before we get into the Toastmaster thing, because I also like that idea, that over time you're building a group of people of like mind. Maybe you find someone of like mind. You live amongst people beside you who have nothing to do with what you're doing, but somebody in Sao Paulo, and someone in Yerevan, and someone in Beijing, or Jinan, or someone in Kampala, these are all people I know
Okay.
that are somehow connected to you at the soul level or the soul purpose level, and you can do something. The six of you can do something that then shifts the way others are doing their work or thinking. So finding like-minded people in various parts of the world is part of it.
Yeah.
Uh, so I would say that.
And I also want to share one more thing, that it's also about having somebody who, like something that inspires you. So I think that spark that happened with you with the work of Florence Nightingale, hearing that story, just that belief. I think it's important to actually look at role models, to look at people who have
Yes.
made a huge difference, um, and that can just, change that switch forever, and you could do um, a huge difference to the world, even in your small space. So I love that.
Yes.
So maybe
Well,
you'd like to share the other aspect of your personality, which is really what makes you do the things you do across the world. Share with us about your speaking.
oh, yes. Actually, I before I joined Toastmasters about 8 years ago, I had been already a pretty accomplished speaker. I've been an accomplished speaker. I practiced speaking in my teens, and I was already speaking in various places and ways in my 20s and 30s. So when I started working as developing my opportunity to be in Toastmasters, I was seeing that more than important than clearly I had the opportunity to keep practice speaking, and it's like playing piano or doing anything else. It's good to keep polishing, to keep practicing at it.
Sure.
But the thing that I liked best about being in Toastmasters was the opportunity to empower other people to have their own voice. And that Toastmasters process helps you to not only to practice speaking and to feel confident doing that, but to listen to others and to evaluate them where they are and help them to take the next step and the next step and the next step. And I would say I was privileged to be working with one woman who has phenomenal gifts. She's a fabulous artist who was afraid to even start with the first speech, which is called the icebreaker, which
Yes.
just to tell her own story. And now she's taken, she stands in her power and speaks confidently in so many places. And I was part of that, part of helping her to have that. And so uh, when when you're thinking about having nurses who don't necessarily feel confident to have their voice, they're confident to be doing their work behind a curtain, perhaps, or in a small group, or just with a one-on-one with a patient or a family. They don't have necessarily the sense of confidence to get up and stand in their power and talk about the things that we care about, the caring, compassion, commitment that nurses bring to the world. We need to be speaking to that, to the world,
Absolutely.
especially now more than ever.
Sure.
And so this notion of bringing the skills that Toastmasters brings and the opportunity to do Zoom calls, have Toastmasters meetings by Zoom,
Yeah.
I might be able to mentor 6 or 7 nurses in Bangalore, right?
Wow. That's
And help them have their voice.
absolutely.
So that's the kind of ideas that I'm having now with this. I've reached my own pinnacle, my own achievement. The DTM is the achievement in Toastmasters. So now what do I do with it? Do I could go and be a fantastic speaker. That's not so interesting as helping 10 or 20 or 30 other people be speakers, especially if I'm working maybe in small groups. Again, that idea, a small group in India, a small group in Uganda, a small group in Malta, a small group in the Caribbean, or whatever.
That's brilliant. In fact, that's what our all is all about. It's about lifting women in whatever way we can
Yeah,
and lifting others. So what you're doing with your work, even in this space, is actually lifting people up. And we have I have some very close friends in Bangalore, in all, that's our group, the All
yes,
Ladies League, who, one friend who is already reached the same distinction as you, and I know that she empowers other women in finding their voice as well. So
yes.
so I want to acknowledge you for
Thank you.
this beautiful work that you're doing.
Thank you
Yes.
very much. We don't have our Christina. Where is she?
I know. I'm just looking for Christina. If she's not there, then we both can continue our conversation. So I'm
Yes.
just
Okay.
checking this.
Sure.
I'd
Maybe
love
you be
to have
thinking,
her.
also be thinking of the question you want to ask me, so I can speak to not just to what's coming to me, but to be in, because I'm really enjoying this dialogue more than me talking monologue.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm thinking, what else did I want to ask you? Um, so, so there was another thing that interested me. So you have this passion for writing,
Yes.
and you love writing, and you have, authored and co-authored so many books and
Yes.
articles. So maybe you could tell us, our viewers, which of these books that you've authored or co-authored is really close to your heart and why?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a big question. I I could answer that. I could answer five or six different ones.
Okay.
I was, oh, let's just say, one of the things that I've co-authored recently is something that I never thought I would ever achieve. See, again, you have it. You dream as a young person. You dream a dream, and you think, oh, that's way out, way out, and way beyond. And then you come to that time where you just, it's this very simple thing. So in most recently, I've co-authored with two other colleagues an article for the American Journal of Nursing, which is the pinnacle. I don't know what the Indian equivalent would be, but it's the epitome of American nursing consciousness. And it's a glossy, high-end magazine that has a very it, it requires leaders who know what their topics well to be the authors of articles. And we just walked into bringing an article about the connection of Florence Nightingale to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And that is actually, that's a whole area we could be unpacking for
Sure.
a number of hours. But the UN Sustainable Development Goals are really 17 goals that come together and pack it in a package that become each other's determinants. So if you say that a goal to reduce poverty and a goal to increase education and a goal to uh, increase gender equity, and I'm mentioning a couple of these goals, they are all health related goals. And as we're studying Florence Nightingale, we noticed that she was actually working on all of those goals because these are the goals that are interactive across time. And so we brought an article about the, the, the mother of modern nursing to the sustainable development goals that are happening now, coming from the UN, but across the world, to connect, again, as you said, a nursing icon, a mentor, someone we look to with. So we go back to the 19th century with what she was doing, working on the same things that what we're doing. And so that means that we as nurses have these goals also, and we can be working on them. And this article was about that. So it was a nice way to bring all the work that I've been doing in scholarship, 19th century scholarship and understanding Nightingale, and bring what we're aiming to achieve across the 21st century and bringing them together. And that's why I liked it so much. Thank you.
That's beautiful. That's really inspiring. So I'm just thinking, as if so, we've looked at two or three aspects of what you do and how passionate you are. And at this point, if you had to just pause and let me just see what's the message here. I want to wait
Sure.
for the second speaker. Okay. So I don't think we have the second speakers yet. So we could just have a little more conversation if you're
Sure.
okay with it, and
Of
then we could wrap up. So I'm just thinking about so the work that you're doing at this point. I'm wondering, is there something that you would like to see happen, or any kind of support you'd like to see to continue doing what you're doing from or, our viewers or people who are interested in this space? So I'm wondering if there's anything that you feel, you aspire that you'd like to see happen.
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. You're a good moderator.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, we've created with our Nightingale Initiative for Global Health, we've created a Nightingale Declaration for a Healthy World that begins with the words, "We, the nurses and concerned citizens of the global community, dedicate ourselves to achieve a healthy world." And we started with that Nightingale Declaration, and in the 2006, 7, 8, and 9, when social media was less prominent and the internet was emerging, we were able to get 22,000 people from 146 countries to sign that declaration online. And then we went on to other things with our projects, and now we realize that we really need to come back to it. We, the nurses and concerned citizens of the global community, dedicate ourselves to the achievement of a healthy world.
Yeah.
And so we're working now on having the declaration more prominent in our work. We have it in English and French. We want it in all 6 UN languages, but maybe we also need it in Hindi. Do we need it in Sanskrit? And develop ways to promote it. I'm nearly 72, and so I'm not as good at social media as people maybe your age or younger. So how do I get this declaration to the world to sign? How do I get the millennials to help me get this signed?
Oh,
and and so we would love to get this out to the world in many different ways with using many different media, and help with that would be wonderful. So
I think that's a great way to pause in our conversation, because I would love to say that I can support you and I would get in touch with you. So, maybe reach out to our community. We have some amazing women in the space who can make this happen for you.
Wonderful.
So, we expand this, and people across the world in different, different cultures, different parts of the world can sign this declaration along with you. Yeah, happy to reach out to you.
Thank you. And we named it for Nightingale because, of course, perhaps you know this, Nightingale was loved across the world. She's loved across India. Perhaps you know that.
I studied about Nightingale. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Train Nurses Association of India in Delhi, their office is on Florence Nightingale Lane.
Whoa. Okay.
So the Indian people know and love Nightingale, and part of why is because she influenced 5 successive viceroys into Delhi, and she was working with them. Indian independence didn't happen until after World War II, correct?
Yeah.
But
1947.
Those viceroys were already working on developing what was needed. They were working on seeding collective consciousness for independence, even in the 1870s.
Wow.
And so there's part of the reason why she's loved. And of course, the Trained Nurses Association of India started it in 1908, and she was still alive.
Yeah.
So there's a love for Nightingale in India that we can, because when you make a Nightingale declaration, you have to know about Nightingale.
Absolutely. So when I'm listening to this talk, you've taken me back into history.
Yes.
We're talking about the present, and you're showing me hope for the future. And the fact that we as a community can come together and make such a big difference. So I really, I'm actually, when you told me I'm a good moderator, actually, I want to pause and tell you this, that it's what you are bringing to this conversation. I'm just holding the space to listen to these incredible stories that you have, and you're making such a difference. So truly, it's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you.
Is there anything, I think we are at the end of it, is there anything you want to say to the global audience before we wrap up?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. This is an amazing time in history, a time like no other. And we're hearing language like what is the new normal, creating the new normal, creating opportunities, making breakthroughs, coming out of this time of self-isolation into breakthrough opportunities, and this opportunity to be with the world on Zoom. What a concept, what an idea. We couldn't have, Zoom is like the internet was 20 years ago. We thought, what's the internet? Now we're saying, what's Zoom? It's but we know what's going to come of this. Gives me chills. So just whoever's listening, be confident in knowing that God, in her infinite wisdom, is looking after us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just want to share with you that you have touched me, and I'm sure you've touched so many people with the incredible work that you're doing.
Thank
And
you.
even this, the way you think, it gives me hope for our future. So, as a
Yes.
token of our appreciation, the Women Economic Forum, and we would like to honor you with the award of the iconic woman, creating a better world for all. And
Thank
so, congratulations, you will have this in your email very soon. Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you, Deva Mary. And
Well,
I will stay in touch with you so I can take this conversation about the declaration to the right people.
thank you so much. Oh, much. Actually, that may be the very important thing, that the reason why I did this. Thank you so much.
You see, I'm so glad we tapped into it before we close the conversation. Thank you.
Bye for now. Namaste.
Bye bye. Namaste. Thank you.